In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling centers of interstellar trade and politics, humanity had claimed its first real foothold among the stars. The planet they called Haven was a place of soft, rolling hills, wide rivers, and skies that shimmered with two suns during the day. It was here, on this distant world, that a small group of settlers worked tirelessly to build a new life. They were led by Daniel Carter, a man with a vision of peace and cooperation. He believed that humanity's future depended not on conquest or conflict, but on forging alliances and understanding with others. The settlers had been on Haven for just over 5 years when something extraordinary happened. Emma Lewis, a young biologist who spent most of her days studying the planet's unusual plant life, ventured farther than usual one morning. She had heard rumors of a strange forest near the edge of their territory, a place where the trees seemed to glow faintly at night. Curious, she packed her gear and set out early, leaving behind the familiar hum of the colony. As she walked deeper into the wilderness, the air grew cooler, and the ground beneath her feet became softer. Soon, she found herself surrounded by towering crystalline structures that looked like trees made of glass. Their surfaces sparkled in the sunlight, casting rainbows across the forest floor. It was breathtaking, unlike anything she had ever seen. But what truly took her breath away was the sight of movement ahead. At first, Emma froze, unsure of what she was seeing. Then, slowly, figures emerged from between the glowing trees. They were tall and slender, with skin that seemed almost translucent, shimmering faintly as if lit from within. Their eyes were large and calm, reflecting the light in a way that made them look otherworldly. These beings moved gracefully, their steps deliberate and unhurried. They were clearly intelligent, observing her with the same cautious curiosity she felt toward them. Emma's heart raced, but she forced herself to stay calm. She remembered Daniel's words about how humanity's survival in the galaxy depended on making friends, not enemies. Slowly, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small flower native to Haven, a delicate bloom with petals that shifted colors in the light. Holding it gently in her palm, she extended her arm toward the nearest figure. For a moment, nothing happened. The being tilted its head slightly, studying her gesture. Then, with fluid movements, it stepped forward and reached out a long, elegant hand. Instead of taking the flower, it placed a glowing orb into her palm. The orb pulsed softly with light, warm to the touch. Emma smiled, feeling an unexpected sense of connection. Word of the encounter spread quickly back at the colony. Some settlers were thrilled, eager to learn more about these mysterious beings. Others were wary, unsure of their intentions. Daniel listened intently as Emma recounted her experience, his mind racing with possibilities. "This could be the start of something incredible," he said, his voice filled with hope. But not everyone shared his optimism. Ryan Bennett, a military officer tasked with protecting the colony, voiced his concerns openly. "We don't know anything about them," he argued. "What if they're not as peaceful as they seem? What if inviting them closer puts us in danger?" Despite the doubts, preparations began to establish contact with the newcomers. The settlers learned that the beings called themselves the Veil, a species known throughout the galaxy for their pacifism. Rumors spoke of their deep connection to nature and their refusal to engage in violence under any circumstances. To many humans, the idea of such a society seemed almost impossible to comprehend. Emma, however, couldn't stop thinking about the moment she had stood face to face with the Veil. There had been no hostility, no fear, only curiosity and kindness. As she gazed at the glowing orb resting on her workbench, she felt certain of one thing: whatever challenges lay ahead, meeting the Veil was only the beginning of a much larger story. The days following Emma's encounter with the Veil brought a mix of excitement and uncertainty to the human colony on Haven. News of the meeting spread like wildfire, sparking lively debates among the settlers. Some were eager to learn more about the Veil, while others remained skeptical, questioning their intentions. Daniel Carter saw this as an opportunity to build bridges, but he knew that gaining trust would take time and patience. A few days later, A delegation from the Veil arrived at the edge of the human settlement. They came without weapons or displays of power, simply walking in their calm, deliberate manner. Their leader, an elder named Lirath, carried herself with a quiet dignity that commanded respect. Her presence alone seemed to soothe the nervous chatter of the humans gathered to meet her. Daniel stepped forward to greet them, flanked by Emma, who had volunteered to help communicate. Though the language barrier was significant, progress was made slowly. Emma used gestures and simple words, while the Veil responded with melodic sounds and soft movements of their hands. Over time, patterns began to emerge and understanding grew. The Veil were curious about humanity, how they had traveled across the stars, how they built their machines, and why they chose to settle on Haven. In return, the Veil shared glimpses of their own culture. Through pictures drawn in the dirt and objects they brought with them, they explained their deep bond with nature. They lived in harmony with their environment, taking only what they needed and ensuring that nothing was wasted. Their society thrived not through competition, but through cooperation, solving problems together rather than fighting over them. Despite these revelations, tensions lingered within the human colony. Ryan Bennett, the military officer, continued to voice his concerns. "They're hiding something," he said during one heated council meeting. "No species can survive out here without defending itself. What are they really after?" Daniel tried to reassure him, pointing out the Veil's openness and willingness to engage. But Ryan wasn't convinced. He argued that trusting the Veil blindly could leave humanity vulnerable if another, more aggressive species decided to attack. His warnings struck a chord with some settlers, who worried that the colony's focus on diplomacy might weaken its defenses. Emma found herself caught between these opposing views. On one hand, she admired Daniel's vision of peaceful coexistence. On the other, she understood Ryan's fears. Late one evening, as she sat outside her quarters staring at the glowing orb the Veil had given her, she realized she needed answers. The next day, she asked Lirath if she could visit their community to learn more about their way of life. To her surprise, Lirath agreed. Accompanied by a small group of settlers, Emma journeyed to the Veil's home, a sprawling village nestled within the crystalline forest. The structures there were unlike anything she had ever seen, appearing to grow naturally from the ground like living organisms. Lights pulsed gently along their surfaces, synchronized with the rhythm of the forest around them. The Veil welcomed their guests warmly, offering food and showing them how they lived. Emma was struck by their simplicity. There were no machines or tools beyond what was necessary for survival. Instead, the Veil relied on their knowledge of biology and the natural world, using plants and minerals to create everything they needed. As the visit went on, Emma noticed something else: the absence of conflict. Disagreements did arise, but they were resolved through calm discussion rather than anger or force. It was clear that the Veil valued harmony above all else, even when it required great patience. When she returned to Haven, Emma shared what she had learned with Daniel and the Council. Her descriptions painted a picture of a society fundamentally different from humanity's own. A society that had chosen peace not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Yet, despite her enthusiasm, doubts still lingered. Could humanity truly embrace such ideals? And if not, what did that mean for their relationship with the Veil? For now, the two species continued to work toward understanding, each step bringing them closer to an uncertain future. As the bond between humans and Veil grew stronger, an uneasy calm settled over Haven. The settlers worked hard to learn more about their alien neighbors, while the Veil seemed genuinely interested in understanding humanity. Emma Lewis became a key figure in these exchanges, spending hours each day communicating with Lirath and other Veil leaders. Her efforts helped build trust, but not everyone in the colony shared her optimism. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Ryan Bennett stood on the edge of the settlement, looking out at the darkening landscape. He had been monitoring reports of unusual activity in nearby star systems. Ships belonging to an aggressive empire known as the Krylos had been spotted moving closer to Haven's borders. The Krylos were notorious for their brutality, enslaving weaker species and stripping planets of their resources. Ryan knew that if they reached Haven, the fragile peace the humans and Vale had built would be shattered. The next morning, Ryan brought his concerns to Daniel Carter and the Council. "We need to prepare," he said firmly. "The Krylos won't care about our talks with the Vale. They'll see us as weak and take what they want." Daniel frowned, his usual calm demeanor wavering. "And what do you suggest we do?" "Start building weapons and fortifying walls." "That's exactly the kind of behavior the Vale are trying to avoid." Ryan crossed his arms. "I'm not saying we abandon diplomacy, but we can't ignore reality either. If the Krylos come here, they won't hesitate to destroy us." The room fell silent as the weight of Ryan's words stank in. Some council members nodded in agreement, while others exchanged worried glances. Emma listened quietly, her mind racing. She wanted to believe that the Vale's peaceful approach could work, but she couldn't ignore the danger posed by the Krylos. Later that day, Emma decided to speak with Lyrath about the situation. When she arrived at the crystalline forest, the Vale elder greeted her warmly. Sensing Emma's unease, Lyrath invited her to sit beneath one of the glowing trees. After explaining the threat of the Krylos, Emma asked, "What will you do if they come here? Will you fight to protect yourselves and us?" Lyrath paused, her large eyes reflecting the soft light around them. "The path of violence is not ours to walk," she said gently, "but neither is the path of surrender. We have faced threats before and found ways to endure without causing harm." Emma pressed further. "But how? How can you stop someone like the Krylos without fighting back?" Lyrath placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Strength is not always measured by force. Sometimes it lies in unity, in creativity, and in the courage to stand firm even when fear whispers otherwise." Though Lyrath's words offered some comfort, Emma returned to the colony feeling unsettled. She relayed the conversation to Daniel and the Council, who debated late into the night. Some argued that the Vale's methods might offer a way to deter the Krylos without bloodshed, while others insisted that preparation for war was the only sensible option. Meanwhile, the Vale began making subtle changes in their own community. They gathered supplies, strengthened their shelters, and sent scouts to monitor the skies for signs of the Krylos fleet. Though they avoided discussing it openly, it was clear they were preparing for the worst, even if their preparations looked different from humanity's. Tensions rose as weeks passed with no sign of the Krylos. The uncertainty weighed heavily on everyone. Soldiers like Ryan trained tirelessly, while farmers and engineers worked double shifts to stockpile food and repair equipment. Even the children noticed the shift in mood, playing quieter games and sticking closer to home. Then, one fateful morning, a scout ship appeared in the sky above Haven. It wasn't large, but its sleek design and menacing silhouette left no doubt. It belonged to the Krylos. Panic rippled through the colony, and Daniel quickly called an emergency meeting. As the council argued over the best course of action, Emma realized that the time for debate was over. Whatever happened next, humans and Vale would face it together, or not at all. For the first time since landing on Haven, humanity's ideals of peace and cooperation were about to be tested in the harshest way possible. The arrival of the Krylos scout ship sent shockwaves through both the human colony and the Vale community. For days, the small vessel lingered in orbit, scanning the surface of Haven with cold precision. Its presence was a constant reminder of the danger looming over them. The settlers grew restless, their fear manifesting in whispered conversations and sleepless nights. Even the usually serene Vale seemed uneasy, their movements hurried as they worked to secure their homes in the crystalline forest. Emma Lewis spent much of her time shuttling between the humans and the Vale, trying to keep lines of communication open. She could see the strain on everyone's faces, the worry etched into Daniel Carter's brow, the tension in Ryan Bennett's clenched fists, and the quiet resolve in Lyrath's steady gaze. Each group had its own ideas about what to do, but finding common ground felt nearly impossible. One evening, Emma sat with Lyrath beneath the glowing trees, the air thick with unspoken fears. "Tell me more about your history," Emma asked softly. "How did you face threats like this before?" Lerath hesitated, then began to speak. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight behind her words. "Long ago," she said, "our people were not so different from yours. We fought wars, built weapons, and sought power, but those choices led us to ruin. Our world was scared, our numbers dwindled, and we nearly destroyed ourselves." Emma listened intently as Lerath described how the Veil had rebuilt their society after that dark chapter. They chose to reject violence entirely, focusing instead on understanding and cooperation. It wasn't an easy path. There were times when they faced enemies who showed no mercy, but they learned to adapt. "We found strength in unity," Lerath explained. "When others sought to harm us, we stood together. We used our knowledge, our creativity, and our courage to protect ourselves without causing harm." Her story left Emma deep in thought. That night, she shared it with Daniel and the council, hoping it might inspire a solution. "Maybe we don't have to choose between fighting and surrendering," she suggested. "What if we can find another way? Something that combines the Veil's wisdom with our own strengths?" Daniel nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "It's worth considering," he said. "But time is running out. If the Krylos send more ships, we'll need a plan, and fast." Ryan, however, remained unconvinced. "This all sounds nice," he said gruffly, "but I don't see how it helps us against an enemy that doesn't care about peace or compromise. They'll crush us if we don't fight back." Despite his skepticism, preparations began in earnest. Engineers from both species worked side by side, combining human technology with Veil ingenuity. The Veil introduced the humans to bioengineered tools capable of disabling machinery without causing permanent damage. These tools could emit pulses of energy that disrupted electronic systems, rendering ships and weapons useless temporarily. It was a non-lethal approach, one that aligned with the Veil's principles while still addressing the threat. As the days passed, the colony transformed into a hub of activity. Soldiers trained alongside Veil scouts, learning new tactics focused on defense and evasion rather than outright combat. Farmers and builders worked tirelessly to fortify key areas of the settlement, using materials provided by the Veil. Even children contributed, helping to gather supplies and spread messages between groups. Through it all, Emma noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Though fear still lingered, it was tempered by a growing sense of purpose. Humans and Veil were working together in ways neither group had imagined possible. There were moments of frustration and misunderstanding, but they pushed through, driven by the knowledge that their survival depended on unity. Finally, the day came when the Krylos fleet appeared on the horizon, a massive armada of ships casting long shadows over Haven. Panic surged briefly, but it quickly gave way to determination. Everyone moved to their assigned positions, ready to put the plan into action. As the first wave of ships descended toward the planet, Emma stood beside Daniel and Lerath, her heart pounding, but her resolve steady. For the first time, she truly understood what Lerath had meant about finding strength in unity. Whether they succeeded or failed, humanity and the Veil had already achieved something remarkable. They had chosen to stand together, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope and cooperation could light the way forward. The moment the Krylos fleet entered Haven's atmosphere, chaos erupted, but it was controlled chaos. The humans and Veil sprang into action, executing the plan they had spent weeks preparing. Swarms of bioengineered drones launched from hidden positions across the landscape, their glowing forms cutting through the sky like fireflies. These drones, created using Veil technology and human engineering, emitted pulses of energy designed to disable the Krylos ships without causing permanent harm. At first, the invaders seemed unfazed. Their massive vessels loomed overhead, dark and menacing, as they began deploying smaller attack crafts. Laser blasts streaked down toward the surface, targeting key areas of the colony. But the humans and Veil were ready. Pilots from both species maneuvered their ships in tight formations, drawing the attackers away from vulnerable settlements. Meanwhile, ground teams worked tirelessly to keep the drones operational, ensuring they continued disrupting the Krylos fleet. Emma Lewis watched from a command post near the edge of the colony, her hands gripping the edge of a console as she monitored the battle. She could see flashes of light in the distance where human and Veil forces clashed with the enemy. Every explosion made her heart race, but she forced herself to stay focused. Beside her, Daniel Carter issued orders over a comms channel, his voice calm but firm. "Hold the line," he repeated. "We can do this." Ryan Bennett led one of the defensive units, his fighter darting between enemy ships with precision. Though he had been skeptical of the Veil's non-lethal approach, he now saw its potential. The drones neutralized many of the Krylos vessels quickly, leaving them adrift in space. Still, some ships managed to evade the drones, forcing Ryan and his team to engage directly. Each victory came at a cost: burnt-out engines, damaged hulls, but the combined efforts of humans and Veil kept the invaders at bay. In the crystalline forest, Lirath coordinated the Veil's response. Her people worked in harmony, their movements fluid and efficient as they operated the drone systems and tended to injured allies. Though the Veil avoided direct combat, they played a crucial role in maintaining the defense network. Their knowledge of biology and energy patterns proved invaluable, allowing them to adapt the drone's programming on the fly. As the battle raged on, the Krylos grew more aggressive. They hadn't expected such resistance from what they assumed was a primitive colony. Their frustration boiled over into reckless attacks, which only played into the defenders' favor. Human pilots used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly before retreating to safety. Veil scouts guided these maneuvers, their understanding of the terrain giving them an edge. Despite the progress, the strain was evident. Supplies dwindled and injuries mounted. At one point, Emma rushed to help carry a wounded pilot back to the medical tent. As she worked alongside Veil healers, she saw firsthand how seamlessly the two species collaborated. There was no hesitation, no division. They acted as one, united by a shared purpose. Finally, after hours that felt like days, the tide turned decisively. A final wave of drones disabled the last of the Krylos ships, sending them spiraling out of control. Realizing they were beaten, the remaining vessels retreated, vanishing into the void beyond Haven's skies. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the hum of damaged equipment and the distant cries of survivors. When it became clear the threat had passed, cheers erupted among the humans and Veil. Exhausted but triumphant, they gathered in the center of the colony to assess the damage and celebrate their hard-won victory. Daniel stood atop a makeshift platform, addressing the crowd. "Today," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "we prove that peace is not weakness. It's strength, the kind that comes from working together, even when the odds are against us." Lirath stepped forward, her shimmering form catching the fading sunlight. "This day will be remembered," she said simply, "not just for what we achieved, but for what we became, together." As Emma looked around at the faces of her fellow settlers and their Veil allies, she felt a deep sense of pride. They had faced an overwhelming enemy and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through unity, ingenuity, and courage. For the first time, she truly believed that humanity and the Veil could build a future worth fighting for, one defined not by conflict, but by cooperation. In the days following the battle, a profound sense of relief washed over Haven. The Krylos had been driven away, and though the colony bore scars, burnt fields, damaged buildings, and weary faces, the victory felt monumental. For the first time, humanity and the Veil had stood side by side against a common enemy, proving that their alliance was not just an idea, but a tangible force capable of overcoming even the greatest threats. Emma Lewis walked through the settlement, her steps slow and deliberate as she took in the aftermath. Workers were already repairing what had been broken, their movements filled with purpose. Children played cautiously among the ruins, laughing despite everything. It was a scene of resilience, one that reminded Emma of the strength both species had shown during the fight. She stopped to talk with a group of Vale who were helping rebuild a collapsed wall. Their calm efficiency inspired her, and she found herself smiling as they exchanged quiet words of gratitude. Daniel Carter called a meeting of the council to discuss the next steps. The room buzzed with energy as settlers and Vale leaders shared their thoughts. "We survived this attack," Daniel began, his voice steady. "But we can't assume it's over. The Krylos will regroup, and when they return, they'll come stronger. We need to prepare, not just for defense, but for the future." Ryan Bennett nodded, his usual skepticism softened by the recent victory. "Agreed. But preparation isn't enough. We also need to understand why the Krylos targeted us in the first place. Was it random, or did they see something valuable here?" Lyreth, seated beside Daniel, spoke up. Her melodic voice carried a note of urgency. "The Krylos are drawn to power and resources. They seek to dominate because they fear losing control. If we wish to prevent further conflict, we must show them that we cannot be dominated." Her words sparked a lively discussion. Some suggested fortifying Haven further, while others proposed reaching out to neighboring species for support. Emma, listening quietly, raised a point that surprised even herself. "What if we focus on showing the galaxy what we've built here? Not just our defenses, but our unity. If other species see how humans and Vale work together, maybe it'll give them hope, and make the Krylos think twice about attacking us again." The idea resonated with many in the room. Over the following weeks, efforts shifted toward rebuilding not only physically but also symbolically. Humans and Vale collaborated to create a monument at the heart of the colony, a towering structure made of materials from both cultures, its design blending human ingenuity with Vale artistry. The monument served as a reminder of their shared triumph and a declaration to any potential enemies. Haven was not a place to be conquered. Meanwhile, communication between the two species deepened. Linguists worked tirelessly to improve understanding, crafting a hybrid language that combined elements of both tongues. Engineers continued refining the bioengineered drones, making them more effective and adaptable. Farmers experimented with Vale agricultural techniques, producing crops that thrived in Haven's soil while requiring fewer resources. As trust grew, so did personal connections. Humans invited Vale into their homes for meals, sharing stories and laughter late into the night. In return, the Vale welcomed humans to their gatherings, where music and light wove intricate patterns in the air. These moments of connection transformed allies into friends, strengthening the bond between the two communities. One evening, as the twin suns set over Haven, Emma joined Daniel and Lyreth near the new monument. The three stood in silence, watching the colors of the sky shift and fade. Finally, Emma broke the quiet. "Do you think we can really keep this going? I mean, not just surviving, but building something lasting." Daniel smiled faintly. "It won't be easy. There'll be challenges, disagreements, maybe even failures. But if we keep choosing to stand together, I believe we can do more than survive. We can thrive." Lyreth placed a hand on Emma's shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. "The path ahead will not always be clear," she said, "but as long as we walk it side by side, we will find our way." Looking around at the bustling colony, now alive with renewed purpose, Emma felt a spark of hope ignite within her. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time, she truly believed that humanity and the Vale could forge a future defined not by fear or conflict, but by cooperation and mutual respect. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger than ever. Months passed, and life on Haven began to settle into a new rhythm. The scars of the battle with the Krylos remained visible, patches of scorched earth, half-repaired buildings, and the occasional glint of metal debris in the fields, but they served as reminders of what had been overcome rather than losses to mourn. The humans and Vale continued to work together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. What had started as an uneasy alliance had blossomed into something deeper, a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Emma Lewis found herself spending more time with Lirith, learning not just about the Vale's culture, but also about their philosophy. One afternoon, as they sat beneath the glowing trees of the crystalline forest, Lirith explained how her people viewed the universe. "To us," she said, her voice soft but steady, "every action creates ripples. Violence begets violence, but so does peace. By choosing harmony, we shape the world around us, not just for ourselves, but for those who come after." Emma thought about this often in the days that followed. She saw those ripples everywhere, in the way human children played alongside Vale younglings, in the laughter that echoed through shared meals, and in the quiet determination of settlers and Vale alike as they worked toward a brighter future. It was a lesson she carried with her, one that reminded her of the power of choices. Daniel Carter addressed the colony during a gathering to mark the 6-month anniversary of the battle. Standing before a crowd of humans and Vale, he spoke with a mix of pride and humility. "Today is not just about remembering what we survived," he said. "It's about looking ahead, to the kind of society we want to build. We've shown that strength doesn't have to mean aggression. It can mean standing firm in your beliefs, even when it's hard." His words resonated deeply, especially among the younger generation. For them, the idea of coexistence wasn't just a dream. It was a reality they were living every day. They embraced the Vale's teachings while holding on to their own humanity, finding balance in the blending of two worlds. Ryan Bennett, once the most vocal skeptic of the Vale, surprised everyone by stepping forward to acknowledge their contribution. "I didn't think much of their ways at first," he admitted, his tone gruff but sincere. "But seeing how they fought, not with weapons, but with courage and cleverness, it changed my mind. We're stronger because of them." The Vale, too, reflected on what they had gained. Though they had always valued peace, they now understood that pacifism did not mean passivity. Their decision to stand with humanity had proven that protecting others could align with their principles if approached with wisdom and care. Lirith expressed this sentiment during a ceremony honoring both species. "We came to Haven seeking solitude," she said. "Instead, we found family. And in doing so, we discovered new strength within ourselves." As the seasons changed, Haven flourished. Crops grew taller and healthier thanks to combined farming techniques. New structures rose from the ground, blending human innovation with Vale artistry. Even the crystalline forest seemed to shine brighter, as if reflecting the unity between its caretakers. One evening, Emma stood at the edge of the settlement, gazing up at the stars. She thought about the Krylos and the possibility of their return, but fear no longer gripped her heart. Whatever came next, she knew they would face it together. Turning back toward the colony, she smiled as she heard the distant sound of laughter, human and Vale voices mingling in harmony. In that moment, Emma realized that Haven was more than just a planet. It was a promise, a testament to the idea that differences could become strengths and that peace, though difficult, was worth fighting for. Humanity and the Vale had chosen a path less traveled, one paved with challenges but also hope. Together, they had redefined what it meant to be strong, proving that the greatest victories were not won through force but through understanding. And as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting Haven in a warm golden glow, Emma felt certain of one thing: the story of humans and Vale was only beginning.